Hello, my name is Sarah Lindley, and I'm here today to honor three very important people in my life. The first one that I'd like to talk about is my grandmother. She was the matriarch of our family. She kept our close-knit family together. We would have all kinds of family gatherings at her house. We'd have picnics, camping, all different kinds of things, and Grandma would always have enough food to feed everybody. When I was about 10 years old, my grandma became very ill in Arizona and almost passed away actually. My grandpa told her that if she made it through, then he would take her to Washington State to see my family that was over there. So Grandma pulled through, and that August, my sister and I ended up going to Washington State for 16 days with my grandma and grandpa up through Glacier National Park. And that was an adventure for us because we never really went anywhere. So we got to go through Glacier National Park, and we took ferries across to Spokane, I believe it was. And we just had a really great time. And then that following April, my grandpa passed away. So my grandma lived out on the farm and took care of all the farm stuff by herself, raising the garden. She always had an open door. She had multiple people that would come stay at her house with her, so she wasn't alone. You know, there was teachers from the school that would go out there and stay with her, and, you know, she just always had an open door. My grandma was a very independent, strong person, sometimes a little too independent, too old-fashioned. I remember at my wedding, I wore dressy sandals, and that was against policy back in the day, because I had to have closed-toed shoes, high heels, and I told Grandma, Grandma, I need to make it down the aisle in order to get married. I can't stand at the back of the church and wait for Corey to come get me. So she understood, and we got past that little issue. My grandma has been supportive of all of us kids, all of her grandchildren, all of her great-grandchildren. After my sister and my brother and I, we all had kids, my grandma would not tolerate no for an answer when she wanted to watch the kids. If Grandma wanted to watch the kids, Grandma got to watch the kids. I remember when she lived in the apartments, and she would sit in her chair, and when the kids would fall asleep, she'd just roll the kids down her legs or slide them down her legs to the floor where they could rest comfortably, or she'd just have to move them. She never had to walk around with the kids, never had to carry them very far. She always had a rocking chair, or she had the car seats. Another part that really stands out for me is my high school sports. There wasn't one game that my grandma was not at if she was able to come. She cheered us on at Parents' Night. Her and my mother were recognized every year for being faithful fans. So she is a very supportive person in my life. The next person I would like to talk about is my mother, also known as my grandma's sidekick. Where you saw one, there was always the other one. Mom and Grandma were inseparable. My mom would go over every morning, get Grandma's socks on, take her to any appointment she had. When Grandma was going through dialysis, Mom was there. Grandma went 3 days a week. Mom was there with her. My mom has always been there for my sister and my brother and myself, also our grandchildren. If we call her at the drop of a hat, she is willing to take care of them, help out when needed. Her door is always open. We can go stay there whenever, you know, if the power's out or something, or no heat. You know, Mom's door is always open, day or night, middle of the night, she's always there. Actually, sometimes she's there a little too much. I get calls quite a bit, and actually there's other times that it's actually kind of good because she'll let me know if we have a responder call, so I can make those. Another part that really sticks out in my head with my mom was when I was in labor with my kids. My husband does not handle crabbiness very well. So there was my mom. My mom was my coach. My husband was also there, but he did the back rubbing. My mom, when she was my coach with my daughter, young when I had her and, scared with first labor. And she kept telling me, I told her that I wanted to be done, I was ready to be done. And she said, no, Sarah, you can do this, you can do this. And she's rubbing my head. And I don't remember it, but she says it happened. But apparently I grabbed her around the neck and said, I can't do it anymore. And she said, okay, well, we'll just take a few breaths and everything will be just fine. So she doesn't get flustered very easily. When my grandmother passed away, my mom was out there with her. And that was another memory that I had of my grandma. I told her that I wanted to go out there and see her. She was in Fargo when she passed away. And I wanted to make it out there to see her, to say our final goodbyes. Well, Grandma said no. So I was on my way out there and Mom called me and said, your grandma passed away. Well, she did not want us kids to see her like that, so she had Mom call. And my grandma had her funeral plan from the scalloped potatoes to the buttered buns. She had everything planned out. And I consider my mom a very strong person because I know in situations like that, I don't know how I would handle it. And then my father passed away 2 years ago, and my mom took care of him up until he took his last breath. My mom, took him to all of his appointments, changed him, when hospice came in. Hospice was only there for a day and a half, and she was able to handle all that with the strength that she has. So I am looking to get more strength from my mom, because that's one thing that I am lacking, is that kind of strength. So the final person that I would like to honor today is my dad. My dad was a very outdoors person. He enjoyed hunting and fishing. And I remember when I was young, I wanted to go out grouse hunting with him all the time. So we'd go out grouse hunting, we'd take the four-wheeler down the railroad grade, and, we'd see a grouse, and he'd shoot at it, and I'd be his little Fido, and I'd go fetch the grouse and bring it back to the four-wheeler. Well, we were down by Cameron Lake, and I remember Dad was going to shoot at a grouse, and I jumped because there was a snake not too far away, out in the grass. Well, Dad doesn't even worry about the grouse, he just turns around and shoots the snake like it's no big deal. And so when I started hunting with my dad, I was quite young. And then when I got my firearm safety when I was 12, I was all excited to go deer hunting with Dad, ready to go out in the woods. I went and watched Bambi. I could not go hunting anymore. My dad kept asking, come on, Sarah, you can go out with us, you don't have to shoot, you can just sit out there and watch, but I just couldn't watch a deer being shot until I was 22 years old. I was sitting out in the stand, and my dad had told me that my brother was going to come get my deer after I had shot him. Well, I shot it, and Shane doesn't show up. Finally, 2.5 hours later, my dad comes on the four-wheeler, and, well, did you see anything? I said, well, Dad, I've had a deer laying here dead for the last 2 hours. Oh, really? So he goes down there, and he looks at it, and it was a nice little 6-pointer. So instead of Dad gutting the deer, he went and got Shane. Well, this is Shane's role here, helping his sister out with her first buck. So Shane came and got the buck, and he gutted it out, no problems. But my dad had a hand in getting me back into hunting, and that is what I enjoy doing now. My dad has been very supportive of me. I remember when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, I was very scared to tell my dad. I did not want to disappoint my dad. So I had told my mom, and everything went fine. Then my dad pulled up outside, and I was scared. I went back to the bedroom, had my face in the pillow, and I was crying. Well, Mom had told Dad that I had something to tell him. So Dad comes back there, and he's rubbing my back, and he's saying, Sarah, your mom tells me you have something to tell me. And I said, I don't want to do anything that would make you disappoint, or I don't want you to be disappointed in me. And he said, Sarah, nothing could do that. So I told him I was pregnant. And he said, Sarah, I don't know why you'd be scared to tell me that. All you're doing is bringing me another grandchild to love. So that's one memory that I will have of my dad. Us 3 kids decided to become first responders. And my dad, kind of him-hawed around about us doing this because there's, he's the protective type. He doesn't want us to see things that, would hurt us or give us bad dreams or that kind of stuff. So he was hesitant about us doing it at first. And then once we talked to him, he was very supportive of it. And once we decided that we were going to all be responders, that's when Dad decided to get out. There was enough. He had seen enough in the 16 years that he had been there and how he was able to continue doing it. I have no idea. I know there would be a lot of people that would definitely back out of that. So, with that being said, I could go on and on all night, but I'm very pleased to have these 3 people in my life, and I know I would not be where I am today if I didn't have them. Thank you.